Hey everybody, starting a new project on my 2018 Chaparral 4.5 liter Mercruiser Alpha1. My boating season last fall ended up coming up short. In October I had a major challenge. To make a long story short, to give you an intro, but the boot on my stern drive failed. The boot for the shift cable failed. Now this particular one is the boot that was on my 1998 Mercruiser that those of you that watch me, I have videos posted for where I went in and replaced, pulled the bell housing off and replaced all the bellows because the boat was 25 plus years old, and I just figured it was time. And this was the shift bellows, the shift cable bellows for that. And if you look at it real close, it's got a little bit of cracking down in the bottom of the convolutions. But for 25 years old, this one was pretty good. But I keep this boat on a lift, and I typically keep the drive tipped up at least part way. Not always all the way, but I try to keep the stern drive up out of the water. And there are cautions in the service manual about leaving it tipped up, usually leaving it tipped up over the winter or something at extremes that, you know, if you pull this boot too hard, it could tear. Or any of the other bellows, that any of the bellows could fail. This boat's only a 2018, this is 2025. It was 2024, so you're talking about a 6-year-old boat. Anyway, what happened was I dropped it down, let the hoist down into the water, and went in to go out fishing for one of my last trips in the season before winter. And I heard the bilge pump kick on. And I'm like, what in the heck? You know, bilge pump's running. And opened up the engine compartment and took a look, and I had water come streaming into the bilge. And it took me a while to figure out what it was. I had to get underneath there with a camera and get a look inside the engine compartment. But ultimately I could tell was water seemed to be coming in over on the shift cable side, and I kind of hung my head over the transom while holding on to a rope with the drive tipped up, and and feeling down in, and I could feel that there was a hole in this one. So my biggest challenge was I was about a mile from the boat ramp, and I tipped the drive all the way down. Not that day. I got my trailer all lined up over there and in the water so that when I dropped it off the hoist, I could run with the drive tipped down, run the bilge pump full out. I mean, that's the only way it runs, run the bilge pump running, and hopefully get to the boat ramp before I got so much water in it that I sunk. And it actually worked out okay. The bilge pump kept up with what was coming in from here. But anyway, so now that it's winter, I need to pull the drive and replace this bellows. Now to replace the bellows, you have to pull the shift cable out. To do it right, you have to take the shift cable out. I've seen stuff online where people do some shady things, but the proper way is to remove the shift cable. Now if you've watched some of my older videos on this boat, I had a problem with this shift cable where the factory didn't have it adjusted correctly, and when the boat was new it didn't shift right, and I kind of skewed the settings a little bit so that it would shift okay, because it was stalling coming out of reverse. As long as I'm going to have it apart, I'm going to put in a brand new cable, and I've bought a shift cable kit. So this job is replace the bellows, replace the shift cable, and put her all back together so I'm ready for spring. I've already drained the, I held off draining the lower unit lube so that until now. So I've drained the lower unit lube. I'm going to pull the drive. That's not that hard a task. You got to have these right-hand drive or standard rotation drives. You got to have them in forward. I've already got the steering, I've already got the speedometer disconnected, so I'm going to drop it down, pull the cylinders, pull the bolts, yank it off so that I can start working on the shift cable. let me show you here in just a moment. I'll show you what's wrong with the old one. So if you're looking at the drive here on the starboard side, you can see where we're at here, and you come in to here. That one right there in the middle of the picture is the shift cable boot. The shift cable runs through the center of that. And when you have the drive tipped up, and especially if it's tipped up and steered, right now it's steered port, you stretch that boot. The boot is apparently cracked and failed, and you can see there are 3 great big gaps in there. When I first put my fingers in them, I thought perhaps some animal had gotten up there and chewed on it, but I think it's just, I'm going to call it a boot that was not sufficient quality. Now, I've been looking at the other boots, U-joint and exhaust, and I don't see anything, I don't see any evidence of problems with them. I only see problems with this one. So I'm not going to go through and replace all the boots, just this one. And I'm going to also make sure that the that where this one is clamped is the right distance, and make sure that they didn't stretch it too far when they clamped it in the factory to overstress it. But this was quite a surprise on a boat that's not that old. So any case, but that's what it takes to change the bellows in one of these dudes, in the shift cable bellows, which means you got to take out the take off the drive, take out the shift cable, put in the new bellows, put the cable back. Man, this is, I mean, just so you know, it seems like it ought to be easy, but I'm a pretty good mechanic, and this is my 3rd day working on it, and I haven't worked on all day, all time. I mean, I take breaks, but it's a pretty long process to get this done. And every time you think, oh man, I'll get that wrapped up in an hour or so, it takes you 2 or 3 times that. It's just the nature of the beast on these things. So anyway, I need to pull the drive, and then once the drive is pulled, work the process. Got to go up front and disconnect the cable, then come down here and unscrew it and undo the boot and remove the cable from the bell housing, and then back around and go the other way. Now I'm on the inside of the boat, obviously, in the engine compartment. I've got the outdrive removed so that I can get to the shift cable slide and nut. But now I need to come up here, and this is the cable from the control, and down below is the cable that goes to the transom. The intermediate or lower shift cable is there. So I gotta pull some of these pins out and start disassembling here. Some of these, getting them apart isn't bad. Getting them back together can be a lot of fun, because the pins will get bent and you have to straighten them out. I also sort of learned is that this first pin, if you have it, when you remove the drive, you need it in forward gear, but when you put it in forward gear, it goes back, and then the pin runs into the bracket. So to start with, I put it back into neutral so I could pull the pin out. And then I've got that released. I need to pull the pin off of this one. And that one doesn't rotate. Pull the pin. And of course that messes me up because the washer fell down. Now I don't see where the washer went. It fell down in here. I'll have to get my mirror and stuff and get a better look in a bit. Let's see if I can just get this one out of here. Like that. So that one goes to the back. And then I ought to be able to pull that one out. Like so. There we go. Now this cable goes back to the back and loops around, goes around the back of the steering cylinder there and down underneath. And then after it goes down behind the steering, it goes down in front of the exhaust system and over the starter motor, which is like right in there. You can see right about in the middle of the picture is the cable. Right in front of the exhaust pipe, right over and behind the starter. And many of the boats, my old boat had a spiral wrap on it for extra protection. This boat, I've been looking really hard and I don't see a spiral wrap down there. So I'm going to try taking it apart without pulling it because it isn't there. But we shall see. Alright, so I've taken the cable to get a little more working space. I've unwrapped it from around the steering linkage and now it's out so I say it's relatively straight. I need to take these little guys off here, and I got here, yeah, that should be the ones, a 3/16. To take these off takes a 3/16 12 point. Takes a 3/16 12 point because they're square heads. So we take that one and go pop that one loose, and we pop that one loose. I'm trying to be careful here so I don't drop stuff. Kind of upset me that I dropped that washer. Alright, so we get that, and then the end just comes off because those little screws clamp down on the core wire. And I saw that they had new screws in the kit if I dropped those. Alright, so that's the end there. And then this one needs to come off. Okay, so that nut is 7/16. And then I need to hold the cable, so I don't want to crush it, but I'll hold it tight enough that I can get the nut loose. There it is. That's good. I'll get that nut loosened up. And then this is only supposed to be finger tight. There it goes. Alright, so now then that's the core wire that's left. And I'll need to go down to the bottom and pull that core wire and shift slide out. And then one last thing I'm going to do up at this end is, this is something I did on the other boat just as a lark. It wasn't perfect. I ultimately ended up having to break the string on, but I have some of this braided fishing line, and it's very thin and it's pretty strong, and I've tied a loop of it around the brass ferrule back here. When you put, and I'm going to pull that down like a fish wire. It caused me some trouble being in the way the last time, but when you're trying to get that cable to come out the side, it's got to come in the back through the transom, and it's got to make a turn around the back engine mount and come out the side. And it's a real challenge to get that to go. And last time I was able with that string to help it along. In the end, I think it got snagged, and I ended up having to break it to get it up to remove it. But it was a help. So anyhow, I'm going to tie that up, then lay this piece down along the side of the engine, and then go down to the bottom and work down there. Now that we have things done at the top, we can pull the core wire out, and the instructions really tell you to take out the set screw and the safety wire and all that, but I don't. At least I didn't the last time, and I'm going to try that again because having this attached is a pretty good handle, and it's the shift mechanism is right here, so you pull that out until it disengages, and then you got to pull the core wire out. But having that as a handle is helpful, I'll just say. So we'll just pull this guy out here like so, if we can. Come on. It's kind of gotten stuck. There it goes. Just have to put two hands on it because it's got that end on it, and that end is bent just a little, so the last foot or so didn't want to come out. I can just set that aside, and then I'm going to need to unclamp the bellows and back this guy out. Alright, now I'm about ready to remove the cable, the outer part of the cable. I've got it turned over all the way to the left because I need to remove this clamp on the bellows, or loosen it at least. I think I can just do that with a screwdriver, but it's a tight quarters spot to get in there. I don't have it off, but it is loose. Now I just need to turn things back straight. Alright, so now this is the end of the cable. Let's see if I can get that dude out of there. I've got my special cable removing socket here, because without that, and it's just like an ultra deep thin wall socket. Crap. It's in there good and tight. Okay. Alright, this has been a challenge, but I've got it broken loose. My socket was slipping off, and I didn't know that if it was going all the way to the bottom, so two things. It was rounding corners on the nut. I took the socket, and it had a lead-in chamfer on it, and I put it on the bench grinder, and I took about 80% of the chamfer off. The nut doesn't go all the way to the bottom, so a little chamfer is okay, but I thought there was too much, so I took some chamfer off. I had to be really careful because the socket on the end of here wants to go in and push the socket sideways. So I'm holding it this way, and then I got my heat gun. I don't know exactly what kind of brass that is, but generally aluminum's coefficient of expansion is a little bit more than brass. Not anything like the difference to steel, but a little bit. So I worked on this side with a heat gun gently, just to heat it up till it was warm to the touch, almost uncomfortably warm. So I'd say 120, 130, whatever, because it's about 60 degrees in this garage right now. And just kept this down all the way and kind of kept very, very gently, very gently working it. And just, you know, a ratchet click at a time to try to tell the difference between whether I was rounding the corners or moving the nut, and I very gradually was moving the nut. And so right now I'm at the point where it's starting to turn the cable inside the boat. Sort of feels like it's hung up. I need to go take a look and see. It was kind of hung up, so I'm just going to keep going here. Kind of hear it flailing in there. Go back again. It's stuck again. At this point, it's turning the whole sheath inside the boat. And at some point here, that ought to be, it ought to be out. Kind of looks like it is. The threads are done. Let's see if we can get it to come out. Grab the ferrule with the, like so. Let's just see if we can convince it to come out. But you can see that the nut was pretty well, getting pretty well messed up because the socket was slipping off. Man, I don't know what I would do. Rounded it off. There it is. That's out, and there's my fishing line. The next thing will be to steer it over port direction and remove the clamp for the boot. So just for reference, see my socket, which is the special one that you need. This is the special deep socket with a hex on the end of it. It slipped, and you can kind of see here that it took the was taking the corners off the nut, and I only had a little bit of meat left, and I was really worried about it coming out. And among other things, this socket had a pretty good chamfer at the end where it wasn't getting full bearing. So I just ground off the end a little bit, shortened it up enough that there's very, very little chamfer left. And then I made sure I hammered it a little bit to make sure that it was all the way down as far as it could go. And then put some heat on it and backed it out, you know, very, very, very slowly, because there's perfect seal or aviation Permatex, you know, gasket sealer on this thread, so it doesn't want to just pop loose. It's it's sort of glued in there, and so with a little heat on the housing and going very slow, I was able to get that to break loose and come out. Now that this part is kind of hard to show, but inside here there is a worm style stainless steel clamp. The hex is pointed upward, and I need to get in there with I'm going to try to do it with 1/4 inch drive and see if I can get that bellows loosened out of there. And actually I ended up using this screwdriver style with an extension and a universal, because there wasn't really room to swing the wrench. And when I go back together, I may have to get another extension in here to get the ratchet on it to make sure it's tight, but hard to get your hands in that space. Alright, then let's get my fishing line out of there, and let's see if we can get that to come loose. Oh shoot, come on. I want to be careful not to damage the other boots by being too rough with them. Working space is really tight in here. And right now I've got the clamp pushed all the way to the back. Maybe that's the best. I'm trying to peel that dude off of there, because it's glued on with Bellows adhesive, so it doesn't want to come off. There we go, got it pulled off. Got it pulled off. Hard on the fingers. Looks like it got them scarred up a little. Alright, so there it is, and I kind of tore it, taking it off, but you can see that it had, 3 of the convolutions were torn open. Alright, now I can get the clamp out, because I have a new one. I think I can get the clamp out. There it goes. And that clamp goes in there kind of like this, so that you got to make sure that this is up. It's actually not in bad shape. I could reuse it. We'll see.